Hi guys, my name is Joel and welcome back to I Have a Question, where young adults have discussions with expert guests on hot button issues. Now everybody please welcome Isaac! And our new faces for today are Jermaine and last but not least, Muna.
That's right. As usual, we're going to be using these question paddles to facilitate discussions and conduct polls. And every episode, you know we have an expert guest to come and provide some professional opinions and also to clarify any doubts.
Now, today's topic and discussion is incredibly important. We're going to be talking about the rising cost of living and its impact on us as young adults. Now, the question is, what do we do? How do we navigate it? Should we be concerned? Well, today we have an expert guest, no one better than Second Minister for Finance, Ms. Indrani Raja.
So with that in mind, let's kickstart today's discussion, shall we? The statement of the day is, rising cost of living is a cause for concern for young adults in Singapore. So the question is, as a young adult, are you concerned about the rising cost of living and how much it will affect the quality of your life? If you say yes, you go blue. If you say no, you go red. Okay? Are you guys ready?
I mean, you have to join us as well.
Yeah,
as a young
Do I
adult.
count as a young person?
Yeah, as a young adult.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Wow.
Okay, I think for me, yes, also because I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the quality of life that we are searching for? You know, perhaps we may not need to be concerned if we only want the bare minimum or kind of get through. But you know, everybody has their aspirations, everybody has kind of their ambitions. So we have to ask ourselves, how does it impact us? And I think for a lot of us as young adults, we're already playing catch up all the time. We're trying to catch up, you know, and so even though some people might say, but it's only incremental, it's only a little bit of a percent, you know, it scares us because we're already catching up. It feels like, is this just going to be a perpetual rat race that I just can never take a break from? Yeah.
You're always just chasing something here, and I guess it's because we grew up in a society where, you know, we're in this rat race and we're always trying to achieve something. We want financial stability, but with everything that's going on in the world, it's always affecting something one way or in another. And that's why more and more the concern increases as well.
Can I share something?
Yeah.
Because when I first started work, and I graduated in 1986, so 85 was one of the worst recessions that Singapore had experienced. 86, we weren't out of it yet. So I entered the job market at a time exactly when youth like yourselves were concerned. And I think the question was how to deal with this. So for me, every pay packet that I had at that time, a certain percentage I set aside to save. And then I worked out in advance how much I would need for the month and budgeted accordingly. So it was just a question of working out how much I could afford, but making sure that I saved.
I completely agree. You know, sometimes when you see like other people make their first million at the age of 25 or age of 30, and you find that pressure on yourself to achieve the same thing. But everyone's timeline of success is different. As long as you save a little bit every month, over the years, it will count.
We want to try and make sure that there are jobs for you. A lot of what we do looks at the economy and sees, you know, how can we grow things? Then the other thing is, how can we support, whether it's through education, healthcare. You heard about our $1.5 billion package? Okay, so for households, basically, you know, we're trying to make sure that energy and utilities, those are the key ones, so there's support for that. And at an earlier package, we had CDC vouchers. And in the recent $1.5 billion package, we had GST vouchers as well for households. I mean, we give it per household, but it helps to support everyone. So just wanted to put a perspective on that our real effort is to make sure we can grow the economy, have good jobs for you so that you can have good careers.
I would think that most young people today or young adults who left school would be in jobs now, and I don't think it's that big of an issue in Singapore. But the thing is that what I've been hearing a lot is that even though a lot of them have secured jobs, they are still very concerned, and actually, you know, with all these news of like rising cost of living and everything, they do see themselves having to change their lifestyles as we go on. And like as usual, you know, we conducted an OP poll before this filming session, and I think the results here says that 65% of young adults say that they actually have made changes in their lifestyles because of rising cost of living. So I'm just wondering, like, is this going to be always like this, whereby we will always have to then scale back and then, you know, readjust our lifestyles?
It won't always be like this. We will come out of this. I mean, if you've looked at it long enough, these things tend to go through cycles. And what we need is resilience and basically create enough buffer for yourself.
It does seem like such a privilege. Like when, young people say, I saw in our OP poll, someone said, oh, I've stopped cabbing, because cabs are getting so expensive. Then you think about like my parents' generation, they grew up with chickens and pigs in the house. It's completely a different world.
I have conversations like this with my parents as well, and they're always like, "Why do you keep taking Grab?" And whatnot. But it's like we live in a very different time where now like we're always doing something. We're always making money move. Every time like time is money. So if let's say like we want to save time and really like do things fast, then why not, right?
It's like this not because of what's happening here, it's like this because of what's happening in the world. And a lot of these cost increases are being driven by two big things. One is increase in energy prices. Second is logistics and supply chain issues. So the demand is exceeding the supply, and that's driving the prices up.
Can we talk about GST for a little bit, the GST increase?
Yes.
Because when the government first announced that we're going to be increasing GST, I think most of us were like, but then also we kind of understood why. We looked at the reasons, and in the long run, okay, we understand that there's healthcare costs and everything. But then after internalizing and after accepting it, we look at the news and we see, oh my goodness, like gas prices, and then the chicken ban and whatnot. Then we realize that, okay, like is now really the correct time to do the GST increase?
What I hope that people understand is this. There are two types of price increases. One is the current cost of living, and that's being driven by energy prices and supply chain issues. So number one, global issues. The second reason where prices would go up would be next year when GST kicks in. But the government has got this covered because we have two separate packages for each type of increase. So for the current increase, at the beginning of the year, we had the household support package that was in budget 2022. And most recently, we supplemented that with a $1.5 billion package. That will take care of current increases, and the bulk of it is aimed at helping households with energy and with food. Then, when GST kicks in, we've got the assurance package. And the assurance package was actually designed to cover the majority of households for the GST increase. So majority of households, it will cover them for 5 years, and for the lower income, cover them for 10 years, which means that the way we sized it was even beyond the actual GST increase. And just to ask why we shouldn't defer GST or push it back, as we've explained, we do have a population that's growing older, and we need to provide for healthcare. So the longer you delay it, the less we will be able to do for your parents, grandparents, and the ones who really need that healthcare.
Okay, so we were looking through the OPPi poll earlier, and I think one general sentiment is the concern, that this all these different government policies might just be a temporary stopgap for what they see as like a forever increase in prices, right? So, like, maybe you can help us understand, like how to deal with that.
It's always a targeted solution, making sure that we address the actual issue. But what people may not remember is we have the GST voucher scheme, and that's a permanent scheme. The 1.5 billion package, we increased the GST vouchers, and this was to help with the current cost of living and the GST that was implemented previously. So you can see how it's rolling out. You have a GST increase, you have an assurance package to give you that coverage for a certain number of years, and you've got the GST vouchers that's a permanent scheme. And at the same time, you've also got to work very hard to make sure that you have good jobs with career progression so that your salaries and your incomes also go up.
If I can add a little bit, I think, I've been following like Budget 2022 and tracking and all that, and I feel like a lot of the support is quite holistic, But one of the things that we did is that when we asked this question, and the question we asked was, I believe that support measures announced will help Singaporeans through the cost of living. And actually, 45% of our audience actually disagree. Why do you think that people still feel like it's not enough?
It's understandable when you go through a time where you're trying to buy something, and then last week it cost this amount and this week it costs so much more. We're trying to make sure that whatever support we give is really where it's needed most.
And on that note, actually, when we did ask a question, how much of the budget really supported the lower income, And also to the credit of our generation, I feel like different generations had to go through different crises at different points. And for the young adults, this is where we are all started entering to adulthood, and then we're facing one of the biggest, setbacks and so many things that's happening globally. I think there's this fear, and this apprehension with all that's going on as well.
The fear is normal and understandable, but you're more resilient than you think, and you're more capable than you know. I mean, that's my sense, because having seen so many recessions and seeing how they've adapted and come through, and it's something that we can only do if we all pull together.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that this will pass like at some point, but what are we facing maybe in the next few years, if you can give us an idea of what to expect?
What we are facing is a much more unstable geopolitical world. That does mean that it'll have economic repercussions, but all that said and done, at the end of the day, there's still opportunities. Sustainability, the green transition, for example, is an area where lots of skills are needed and lots of jobs are being created. So if young people look at that, that is one area. The other is the whole digital area. And that's a huge range, from cybersecurity to sort of digital skills to media and so on. That's another growing area. The social work area. As our population ages, we're going to need social workers, we're going to need people who are more familiar with social issues. Education, because it's lifelong, that's also another growth sector. I would say look out for the opportunities, leverage the government grants or whatever that is available that will help you with that, and just go for it.
So for us, as if we're singles, we have no dependents and all that, it's easy for us to change our lifestyle. As we talk about money and time and all that, it's not the end, it's a means to an end. And for many people, I think at some point in their lives, they grow older, they go, I want to start a family. Some go, I don't even want to start a family. I can't even imagine. It may not be at this moment the inability to steward that, but it's like, why would I want more unknowns in my life? Why would I want more responsibilities in a world that's already so scary, And so we actually asked people, the current cost of living concerns have affected my plans to start a family. And 61% says agree. And then a lot of people commented and said, no kids, man, no kids.
It's not restricted to Singapore. This seems to be a global phenomenon. On the other hand, when we've done some of our surveys here in Singapore, we do find that by and large, people want to get married, want to have families. And so the worry seems to be, how will I manage in terms of costs? How will I manage in terms of being able to afford the things that I need to do? And this is what the government has been looking at. First thing, of course, is the housing part. So we are ramping up on our BTOs. And I know that, it was disrupted by COVID, but we're catching up on schedule. We have very generous grants to make sure that it's affordable, especially if coupled with dual income and CPF savings. Then the next thing is when a child is born, to make sure that we have a lot of grants. The healthcare subsidies have been increased for Singaporean parents and children. And then, of course, education, both at the preschool part, we've increased our subsidies, we're extending the preschool options. And then when you go into primary school, that's very heavily subsidized as well, in fact, all the way up. So you can see that every step of the way, there's support for families. In fact, our slogan or tagline is a Singapore that's made for families. And we're working on that to see how we can make it even more family friendly, flexible work arrangements, because it's not just the monetary part, right? It's the stress. Sometimes you need to take time off for your kids, or you have your kids and your parents to look after. So we're embarking on a mission to try and make Singapore much more family friendly.
I think that it is a reality that a lot of young adults today say that I want to move out, I want to have my own, space. So is there any way that we can maybe look out for young adults who aren't ready to start families yet, or just want to put that on hold?
It's a good point that you raised, because it is true that our demographics are changing. I think in 20, 30 years ago, most young people would not have thought of moving out until they get married, have their own place. At the moment, we're prioritizing young families because they're setting up. So we're very cognizant of the fact that young people do want a place of their own, and we have to think how this could be accommodated. I mean, for the private market has got rentals. It's just that, as you say, they're expensive. So in the current situation, my advice would be hold off renting first. Better that you hold on to that money, and as a general rule, we encourage home ownership. Because that gives you an asset that you can hold on to, right? We're looking at all these issues and trying to see what options there are, while still at the same time trying to make sure that we encourage families and encourage home ownership in general.
Okay, I think we've had a really fruitful discussion. We've had, some tips from our expert of the expert here. But let's revisit that question that we asked at the very start today, okay? So, I have a question. Are you concerned, as a young adult, about the rising cost of living and how that might affect your quality of life? Question petals, ready? 1, 2, 3.
It should be enough.
I mean, I feel a sense of, okay, the government is watching out for us. We have a lot of packages in place and they're always looking one step ahead. That's what I think. Yeah.
I would think that after having this discussion, I'm a lot more assured. It's like, okay, at least now the plans make sense to me, because at first they were just like announced plans, right? Now it's like, okay, I understand the rationale behind them, but I also cannot deny that the cost of living is still increasing, and the fact is we cannot just live life as it was before. You must make changes, and therefore my interpretation is then, okay, yeah, it is a cause for concern then. Yeah.
Sama, I feel like it's about it's okay to live with concerns, because if you're trying to pursue a life that is worry-free, I'm not too sure if that's possible. Yeah. But how do we live with worry but manage it, that it doesn't cross a line, that it becomes panic and fear? Yeah. And how do we work as a community, government, and different people to come together to support one another? So I feel like it's okay to live with concern. Just manage it.
I totally agree. I think it's important that you are concerned about, how you want to manage your finances, how you want to build a life of your own. But yeah, after this discussion, I do feel a sense of assurance. I know that, there are options and there's always a way to work around it.
All right, guys, you heard from all of us, and now we want to hear from you. The OP poll is back live again, and you can access it from the description box below. Now remember, your answers are always anonymous.
We want to thank all our partners who made iHack possible. We want to thank OPPi, Lyf Funan, and of course our expert guest, Second Minister for Finance, Ms. Indrani Raja. Thank you so much. And of course, Ministry of Finance. As you mentioned, if you want to find out more info, go to their website. And if you go, what's a website? Well, there's Instagram and there's Telegram, so you can find out more information there. We also want to thank our special guests today, Muna.
Thanks for having me.
And Jermaine. You guys killed it today. It was really good to have you guys around.
Thank you. And we've come to the end of this episode of I Have a Question. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of new content, and follow Zirab on Instagram and I Have a Question on TikTok. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.
Bye.